everybody. I hope you guys are doing well. Welcome back to the next session. Look like people agree with us. Anyway, so in today's session, we are going to cover the following topics. We'll be moving further into the type of asexual reproductions which are present in different organisms other than plants as well. And then we'll be moving forward to the sexual reproduction. But here we'll just be covering the structure of the flower. And maybe in the next session, we'll be moving forward. All right. So moving ahead, we have the type of asexual reproduction such as the budding. It is very important for you to understand that budding basically means an organism will have a bud type of growth onto its body, and the bud type of growth will be drawing the different kind of nutritions from the parent body on which it is growing. And then after growth into the proper size, the bud will either detach from the body and will be forming a separate individual, or the bud will be responsible for the formation of a new bud onto itself, and then there'll be a chain of buds. Okay, this type of formation is usually seen in the yeast but not in any other organism so far, but we can always have multiple examples. Okay, so the example which you're seeing right here is of a hydra. It is very important for you to understand that whenever we are talking about the budding, I just did explain everything. We'll be moving forward with the key points. So the new individual develops from some generative anatomical point. Generative anatomical point means the tissues which are responsible for the growth. Okay, tissues which are responsible for the growth. Okay, getting my point there? So wherever the tissues are present which are responsible for the growth, the bud will be appearing, and when that happens, the bud proliferates. Okay, so the bud proliferates. Okay, it develops different kind of cells, it develops the type of organelles, it develops all the different kind of requirements which are necessary in order for it to become a separate new individual, and then it grows into the size and detaches from the parent body. The best example that you see right here is the hydra. Apart from that, we have the yeast as well. Okay, that is what the budding is. Budding is like the super easy thing to learn, and you're going to be learning this again in the 10th standard in the chapter. Okay, next thing that we have is the fragmentation. Now fragmentation means splitting or the making up of the new fragments. It is very important for you to understand that fragmentation usually occurs in the algae. Okay, now algae are considered to be plants, and the one example that we'll be doing right here is the Spirogyra. So the one drawing that I'm doing here is of the organism Spirogyra, which has spiral shaped arrangement of the different chloroplast. What is a chloroplast? Chloroplast is basically the kitchen of the cell. Okay, and it is green in color. It has the chlorophyll which helps in the photosynthesis. All right, so all the chloroplasts are arranged in the spiral form, and hence the names spirulina. Okay, so what you see right here is the H shaped mark right here. Okay, like this, it is present in between every single cell. Okay, this is called as the H band. Okay, and this H band is responsible for the fragmentation or splitting of the algae from these particular points and formation of the new individuals. All right, and remember, since this is the asexual reproduction, it will be very much identical to the parent. It will be like a clone of the parent. Okay, so you see, each fragment develops into the mature clone, which is genetically, that means has the same DNA, and morphologically means has the same physical appearance. Okay, physical appearance. All right, that being said, this is the type of asexual reproduction. Okay, now I'll be showing you the video of it. Hold on. Now everyone, let's just move forward with this particular video which explains the fragmentation. Okay,
fragmentation. Have you ever noticed green-colored patches in a pond? These are algae. Algae reproduce asexually by fragmentation. Mature algae breaks up into smaller fragments, and these fragments grow into individuals. Fragmentation is the process of breaking of a mature organism into two or more fragments.
see, now that is what we call as the fragmentation.
Good grammar and spelling are...
And we'll be learning more about this, okay? Now, what we just saw was the fragmentation, and you saw the separation from the H bands, okay, and different kind of algae. And the example that I have given you is the spirulina, okay? Spirulina, okay? Make sure to learn all the examples because those are going to take you to the long way. Next thing is the spore formation. Now, spore formation is something which is which basically is a very reliable asexual reproduction method, and it has been carried forward into the plant types majorly. Okay, we'll be learning more about the different type of plants in the 9th standard in the chapter diversity in the living organism, but till then we just be moving forward with this. Okay, now understand this very importantly, that spore formation is the method of asexual reproduction which is found in the non-flowering plants. Why non-flowering plants? Because then those are not as advanced as the higher plants. Okay, these do not have the proper flowers. Okay, and since they do not have the proper flowers, they won't have the proper reproductive structures. Okay, now the example is the rhizopus or the fungi, which is also called as the bread mold. Okay, bread mold. We'll be learning more about this right now through the video, just like the previous fragmentation, and there are multiple bacteria as well. Okay, now see, in this type of reproduction, the parent plant produces the hundreds and hundreds of tiny spores, and those spores can go ahead and travel and can form multiple type of new plants. Okay, now that being said, let's jump ahead. Now here we have the video on the spore formation.
Spore formation. What happens if we keep a piece of bread in warm conditions for a few days? Yes, we will notice blue-green fungus grown on it. Fungus grows from spores present in the air. The spores are light in weight, so they keep floating in the air. Under suitable conditions, they germinate and develop into new individuals. Plants such as moss and ferns also reproduce by means of spore formation.
Now, see, you do understand that apart from the funguses, there are also different kind of plants which go through. Remember when I was telling you about the different varieties of plants which have the spore formation as a reliable asexual method? Now, that is that one, okay? Now, see, that is one thing about the spore formation which we just learned. That is all about the asexual reproduction that you need to know. And the next thing that we are going to learn is the sexual reproduction. And starting with the sexual reproduction, you should know that we did cover about what actually it is in the previous session as well. What actually is the sexual reproduction? Sexual reproduction is the type of reproduction which requires two type of parents, a male parent and a female parent, and both the reproductive structures in order to have a proper formation of the seed in the case of plants. Okay, and we'll be diving into the details of that into the next session. But before that, we'll be moving forward to the structure of the flower because that is like the basis. Okay, in the 6th standard as well, you did learn about the different kind of structures of the flowers, but we'll be learning this again. Okay, so I am hoping that you guys will be learning it with me by speaking it out loud for the sake of practicing. Okay, so first of all, we'll start with the different parts of the flower being the petals. Okay, now, what are petals? Petals are the fluorescent, fragrant part of the flower which attract the insects. And when they attract the insects help in the pollination. What is pollination? Pollination is the process which allows the transfer of pollen grain from one flower to the another flower and helps in the formation of the seed, hence the sexual reproduction. Okay. Now see petals. What are petals? Petals are the colored, fluorescent and fragrant parts of the flower. Next thing which is important is the sepal. Now it is very, very crucial that the plant supports and protects the flower whenever it is in the bud condition, okay, or whenever it has not bloomed to the full potential. Now that being said, these sepals are the ones, look at my video, these sepals are the ones which kind of help in the coverage of the entire petal and all the parts of the flower, okay, like this. And when the flower blooms, the sepals go like this onto the downward side and the flower blooms like this. Okay, so these green sepals are used for the sake of the protection in the bud condition. Okay, it is very important for you to understand that the entire green sepal and everything is based on the receptacle. Okay, this receptacle is the one thing which is present beneath the sepals. Okay, onto which the entire ovary is situated. All right. Now, see, we have covered the sepals, we have covered the petals. Next thing that you need to understand is, if we talk about the male reproductive part of the male reproductive part of the plant, we basically are talking about the stamen. Okay, and what is a stamen? Stamen is consisting of the pollen grain producing anther and the filament. Okay, and this is called as the stamen. If we draw it separately, it'll come out like this. Okay, this will be called as the anther, which will have tons and tons of pollen grains, and this will be called as the filament, which is responsible for holding it up like this, so that if any insect comes, it kinds of gets in touch with it and it helps in the proper pollination. That is the transfer of the pollen grain. Okay. That is the male reproductive part. Next is the female reproductive. Female reproductive parts, they go ahead with the name of the pistil. Okay, pistil or the gynoecium. Okay, now see, what you see right here is that there is a stigma, first of all, which is the platform for the pollen grain to land. As soon as the pollen grain lands onto the stigma, it helps in the sticking of the pollen grain onto the stigma, since it's a sticky surface. Stigma is a sticky surface. Okay, so that the pollen grain does not fly off with the wind. Okay, and that is ensured very much because of the sticky surface of the stigma, for the sake of the proper sexual reproduction. Next thing is the style. Style again is a long tube like the filament which is present in the stamen. Okay, so where the filament holds up the anther in the air, style supports the stigma for the sake of catching up the maximum number of pollen grains in order to fertilization of the maximum maximum eggs which are present. Okay, next thing is the ovary. Now, ovary is the most crucial part of the flower which you need to learn. Okay, ovary will have several layers. It will have a wall, first of all. Okay, that wall is for the sake of the protection. Next thing is the cavity. Cavity will have all different kind of parts of the ovary. Okay, such as the ovules, which are the eggs. Okay, next thing is the nucellus. Nucellus helps in providing the nutrition as well as the protection. Okay, so nucellus basically helps in the nutrition of the egg which is developing and the protection, since it's a cushiony surface. Okay, next thing is the embryo sac. In the embryo sac, we have the different type of eggs being produced or eggs being held and properly protected. Next thing is the micropyle and integuments. Okay, see, whenever we are talking about the micropyle and the integuments, let me just tell you in detail. Micropyle is the way, or micropyle is the pore through which the pollen grains DNA or the pollen grain, they enter into the egg. Okay, so micropyle is the pore or is the pathway through which the pollen grain enter into the egg and they fertilize it. Okay, and then we have the integuments. Integuments are the protective layers. They're nothing special but the protective layers. Protective layers, right? So it is very crucial for you to understand the different parts of the flowers. This was just a proper revision or the proper explanation which you need to learn. Next thing that I have is the questions, just to see how much you have grasped from the concepts that we have just taught in the class. Okay, so see, there was this person Leela who was observing a pond with a clear water which was covered with the algae. Okay, now what she saw was, since the algae was present right there in a very smaller amount at first, it quickly, reproduced and covered the entire surface of the pond. How could that have happened? Now, what type of asexual reproduction method did we learn in this class which was related to the algae? Yes, you're right. It was fragmentation. Okay, correct answer. And the next thing that we have is eye of the potato plant is what? This is the potato, okay? And it has different growths, right? It has different growths which have like green kind of stems or the leaves coming out. These are called as the eyes, okay? Or these could also be called as the buds. Why? Because through them, if we if we plant the potato in the pot, through the eyes or the buds, the proper stems will grow. Okay. Now this is similar to what? Is the root of any plant? No. Bud of any plant? Any like the bud is to flower? No. Anther is to stamen? No. None of these is kind of helping in the reproduction, right? None of these structure is helping in the reproduction, right? But the correct answer is bud to the bryophyllum leaf. Why? Because this bud which is present in the bryophyllum leaf is helping in the reproduction. So this is the correct answer. Let's see the answer. Yes, this is the correct answer. So that's it for today. I'll see you in the next session where we'll be finishing this particular chapter. So that's it. And you guys stay safe, enjoy, study a lot, and have fun. Bye bye.